Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Fuel for Growth podcast with myself, Niles, and Leonard. Today, we're going to be talking about boundaries and how to set them, what is a boundary, and also their use in entrepreneurship in your journey and your self development. So, how are you doing today, Leonard?
Man, I'm doing good, man. Glad to be here for another episode, man. We got a good topic. I know the last one got deep, and it was a good conversation we had. So, man, I'm looking forward to this one.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah. So, to get into it, I think I want to start off by just talking about self awareness because when it comes to setting boundaries, a lot of it for me is understanding myself as a person, right? And being self aware of everything in my life. I look at kind of the way I'm quite meditative a lot of the time. So, in like a morning, I'll spend a lot of time just thinking by myself, and I think that's super, super important because it allows me to realize, okay, what do I need to get done today? And throughout my entire workday, I have boundaries because it's like if somebody calls me up, it's like, hey, I need this favor. It's like, well, sorry, I'm busy. Because I set those boundaries in the morning through my self awareness, right? Through my meditative state of being like, this is what I've got to get done today.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like self awareness is a huge thing for first off, where like especially on setting boundaries, because of the fact that you need to reflect back on some of the things that happened before, right? To figure out why it made you feel that way, how it made you feel, what was the causes of it. Like you got to kind of self reflect and understand to have that self awareness, understand why you felt that way in those moments, and then to try
Mm.
to figure out and fix that and into the future, so you can be like, okay, I didn't like this when this happened. So now that's where I'm gonna draw a boundary there. And I draw a boundary there because XYZ happened and that's what made me feel uncomfortable or made me not want to be a part of that situation. So self-awareness is a huge, huge part of that. You just got to sit down, reflect on everything that you've been going through, what you're actually wanting in life, who you are as a person, and and then start and apply that to your boundaries. That way you can protect your peace. Because at the end of the day, you got to protect your peace at all times. Like energy is a very real thing. So you can go out there and just let somebody drain your energy with all their negativity. So you just got to know that what you're looking for at life, who you are, and then set that boundary with your self awareness.
Yeah, 100%. I think what you said about things that have happened to you in the past, I agree. I think a lot of people don't consider, okay, there was a past experience that I didn't really enjoy, that I didn't like. Let me figure out why I didn't like that and set that as a boundary for me going forward. A good example of this is a story of mine when it comes to lending money to people. I used to give money out just left, right, and center, and it wasn't a lot of money, but over time it built up to a lot of money. But it was just kind of like, oh, £10 here, £20 there, there's £50 there for and it just kind of was this perpetuating thing where I just used to do it all the time. When somebody asked, I would give, and whilst it's absolutely a positive thing to be charitable, you have to be very aware. Okay, why am I giving this person money? What purpose is behind this? Am I just giving it to be kind, or am I giving it with an expectation back? Am I giving it to them because they promised me that, hey, I'll return this money to you, right? And so an experience that I went through in my life was I constantly expected that money back, and I ended up having a lot of arguments with people because of it and all that. So I set a boundary going forward that was, if I'm going to give money out, it's charitable only. That's it. If somebody asks me for money or wants money from me, it's only for a charitable reason and or for a very official reason. So in a business deal, for instance, somebody might be like, hey, I need you to loan me $5,000 so I can invest into this thing, which is going to do this for us, and, contracted kind of thing. And it's like, it's more of a business deal than it is of just like lending somebody money. Right.
Right.
But the boundary that I set was from back then, just lending out money to people and then promising me money back, but never giving me anything back. And in the end, I just said, let me set a boundary and instead just only ever give out money to be charitable or if it's a business deal. Though that's it. And so boundaries aren't a bad thing to have.
No, they're necessary. They're really, really necessary because they're to protect you. Otherwise, like you said, it is good to be good and do charitable things and charitable work. And a lot of people, to say this point, a lot of people will say, well, I don't want to be used. We're all here to be used. Everybody's doing something, business transaction. We're all being used. The point is to
I
not
like
be
that.
misused. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't let nobody miss you. You're being a friend with somebody, even if it's something small. So I just like their time. I just like them, their company, them being around. You're still using them for something. So everybody's using somebody for something. And it's not a bad thing. That's fine. But you just make sure that you're not getting misused to where it's a one-sided relationship where one person is taking everything and then you're not really getting anything back in return from it. Right. So
Yeah.
you just got to understand it because so many people's like, well, I'm not going to do this because they're just using me. No, just be real with yourself. Like you're saying, what am I doing this for? Okay, I was expecting money. I had expectations. Those expectations wasn't met. That caused a lot of hostility, some bad situations for me. Let's remove those expectations now. If I'm going to do it, it's only going to be charitable. That way, nothing like that ever happens again to where I'm getting upset about a situation. So you're set that boundary right there, that boundary right there to make sure that okay, I'm fine with helping people, but I'm making sure that the wrong people don't come around me and be misusing my kindness and my charity work. Because a lot of people will take kindness for a weakness and then start trying to
Yeah.
think that, oh, you're just some pushover. And we kind of talked about this before with us kind of getting into the business world that we thought, being polite, saying certain things, open up to like, oh, does this time work for you? All those things are bad in the business world. You need to be direct. Hey, 8 p.m. Thursday, I got a call. I got time that I could talk to you. If you got time, that'd be great. Hit me up. Like, you got to be more assertive, more dominant in those situations where we thought, kind of being a nice guy and like kind of working to their schedule and that didn't work. That
Yeah.
didn't make you win in the end, right?
No. Yeah, I think assertive communication, right? I think that's what
Yes.
they call it. It's not that you're being nasty. It's not that you're being mean to people, but you're being assertive about what you want, why you're here, why you're having this conversation with somebody, and you're fully aware of the end goal, right? I think that's a really important thing. And even if the end goal is to be kind, it's in terms of like the example of the charity, right? Only giving money out to be charitable, the end goal why I do that and why I'm willing to do that is because that my end goal is to be charitable, right? With that, however, when I do it, my communication is clear. Somebody says, "Hey, can I borrow £50 from you?" It's like, yes, you can have the £50, but I'm giving you this as a charitable thing because I believe you deserve it. And if you come at me again tomorrow asking me for £50, I'm not going to give it to you because this is a charitable act of today because you asked for it. It's clear to me that you need it, and that's why I'm going to give it to you. But you ask me tomorrow, I'm afraid I'm not going to do it. Otherwise, I'll put myself in a bad position if I keep giving you money. So I'm going to do this as a charitable act to you. You take care of this money. You do what you need to do with it. You take care of yourself, and that's it, kind of thing. And so
Yeah.
it sounds almost mean in a way where it's like you're very kind of like, this is how it is, and I'm not giving you any more. But it's just being assertive in your communication and saying, no, I'm doing this to be charitable to you. That's my end goal. But being charitable does not mean getting taken advantage of. So
Yes, it's setting those defined lines. Like if you don't make it a defined line, people are opportunistic, right? So if you give them a chance to do something, they're most likely going to take it. Not everybody's a thief. Not everybody's
yeah,
a thief, right? But if somebody's not looking and $5 falls out of somebody's pocket, a lot of people are just going to take that $5 that fell down there and they're not going to go hunt down whoever's just, opportunistic. If there's an opportunity to do something that they think nobody's going to see and they can get away with it, a lot of people's going to take that chance with it. So don't give them that opportunity. Set your defined lines of what your boundaries are. This is what it's going to be. Make sure that that's established, and people will respect you a lot more for that. It might be a little uncomfortable to do at first because you're so used to maybe being a yes man or yes woman and letting people walk all over you and try to do the kind thing, but maybe they'll do that. Like you got to let that go. Set your defined lines. This is what it is. It'll bring you a lot more peace and structure into your life that way.
yeah. I think when you communicate assertively, that's exactly what that does, right?
Yeah.
It allows you to set those defined lines, and it allows you to say, this is the boundary point for me. I think setting these things is just super important because it also helps you say no, right? If you've
Yeah.
already
Yes.
predetermined a line in which you will not cross, whether this be a line in your own action or somebody else's action, etc., that line, once you've predetermined that line and you've set it, and somebody's going to cross that line by, or somebody asks you, let's say you set a line, a boundary of, I don't drink alcohol. That is a boundary. That is a set line where you say, I don't drink alcohol. So you get a phone call from somebody that you like, somebody that you enjoy being around, and they say, hey, I'm going drinking tonight. I want you to come drinking with me. You've already set the boundary. predetermined. I don't drink alcohol. So you can say, yeah, I can come out with you, but I'm not drinking any alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's boom. It's as simple as that. You can easily say no to people. And if he says, well, I'm not going to go out if you're not going to drink, you say, okay, cool, we're not going out. Because you set that boundary.
Yeah, and even if that's a situation, hey, who doesn't like a designated driver? Hey, you're not gonna drink, come on out anyway. But yeah, no, set those boundaries too. And once you have set a boundary and you set those definitive lines too, if somebody crosses them, you gotta hold them accountable for it. Because there's no sense in having a boundary set and then somebody breaks it and you're like, oh, it's okay, it's all right, just don't do it again. No, now they just realize that that boundary is diminished. A lot of times, and it's going to be kind of controversial to say, a lot of times dealing with people is like dealing with children. You got to realize that you got to give them that boundary. If you tell the kids, you can't have no dessert if they don't eat dinner, they don't eat dinner, then they come 30 minutes, I'm hungry, then you give them a brownie, they ain't going to eat dinner tomorrow night. They're going to say the same ruse on you again. So set the boundaries. When people cross them, you have consequences for those actions. So whether it's like, okay, you don't have this type of access to me no more, you're cut off completely. We're just not going to hang around. I'm going to take some space away, whatever it might be. You just got to know that, like, hey, when you cross boundaries, there is going to be consequences to that, because I expect you to respect me and respect my boundaries.
100%. And when it comes to business, this is obviously a super important thing, because many people in business, and I mean this, like, many people are really bad at business and they will take advantage of anybody they can get their hands on. Right. And this is just a factual thing. Like, I don't think many of the young entrepreneurs, I mean, I myself have only realized it recently. I don't think many of the young entrepreneurs realize how many bad business people there are out there. And when I say bad business people, I don't mean that they can't run a company, because a lot of them run very successful companies, but they take advantage of tons of people, right? And they'll take advantage of them any way they can get, from editors to, I mean, I know a few names. In fact, I'm not going to say it. I was about to say them, but I don't want to start drama, right? But no, I've seen quite a few people, YouTubers that I know, and I'm connected to people that they know on a personal level, who will get editors in for a month. They say, yeah, I pay after like the work's done. So like they pay at the end of the month. They get 4 or 5 videos out from this editor. Don't pay them at the end of the month. It's like, what? Like, and when it comes to business, this is why it's so important to set a boundary. Like, if I set a boundary that, hey, you have to pay me first before I do the job, because I need to know that you're solid, or I have to take a deposit up front. You have to sign this contract. I have those boundaries. And when somebody says, well, no, that's not how I operate, I say, cool, I'm not working with you.
Yeah, exactly. Like what did Drake say? You only get finesse when you don't move properly, right? So, and a lot of it in the business world is, if you don't know business, people ain't going to teach you business. They're just going to take advantage of what you don't know. And you're like, okay, yeah, let's do this. They're going to use you for what you can do. And then they're going to screw you over on the other side because, oh, you don't know this side. This is where I'm going to get my cut. Just like you're saying, okay, all right, come edit. You don't know the business. You should have taken a deposit up front. You didn't take a deposit. All right, now I'm going to get a month's worth of work for you. And like, a lot of people will do shady work like that. So you do got to protect yourself. I've had situations like that. Bro, I used to have 6 employees work for me. Have them running, assistant managers doing contract brandings, all this stuff, editors, cameramen, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, and this is all legitimately on me, I wasn't having my boundaries right. I wasn't as set as a leader. So they was doing things and not getting work done. They was finessing me because I didn't know how to run them properly. So I had to learn that situation. And it cost me thousands of dollars to learn that, lesson. But you got to understand that way people don't screw you over. So like you say, all right, well, you want to do work? All right, I need at least a contract or a deposit up front, or we can't work at all. Like, there has to be something. Your word is not good in business because verbal contracts are not legal. So you get something always in paper, and study as much as you can. YouTube, books, learn, 100%. Whatever it may be. Know what you're getting into. That way people won't screw you over, because they will. And then set your boundaries. Stay definitive to those boundaries. Don't let you needing money dictate what you're going to do in the business world and what deals you're going to take, even if you know that that's crossing a boundary or that doesn't feel right with you and sit right with you at the end of the day.
100%. What you just said right there as well is super important. It's, even if you need money, you have to have these boundaries, because again, I think this is why so many people end up in this situation where, they've done work for people that haven't got paid, or or maybe they you, like in your instance, you hire somebody and they're not doing the right kind of work. And a lot of the time it's because you're desperate for the work to be done. You're desperate for the money that you forego boundaries, thinking that, oh, this is going to help me out. Like this is going to, but it's going to be all right in the end. It's like, no, the most successful business people ever, and I mean ever, all of them have a certain set of rules that they work by.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And a lot of it is just about doing very boring stuff, but doing it to an extremely high level. This is why in the job world, right, if you're looking for a job, you're trying to get a job and you're looking at different companies, I see too many people in jobs that they don't like. And it's all because they didn't set a boundary for what they wanted from their employer, right? Because everybody thinks that it's like, well, I need a job. It's like, no, if you just survive the extra week, but do more. So as in, okay, what I'm trying to say is if you're applying for a job, right, and you apply for one or two jobs, your boundaries are going to have to be foregone because you've only applied for two jobs. You've got two interviews. That's it. So, like, how are you going to sit there and say to somebody, well, no, this is not what I'm willing to work to when you have no other job lined up? But if you apply for 100 jobs and you've got 100 interviews lined up over the month, you can easily turn around to somebody and say, I'm not going to take this job if these boundaries aren't here. And they're going to be like, well, we're not going to say, oh, that's fine. I've got other jobs. I've got other interviews. I'm good. And it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can't have those boundaries and those expectations without putting in the actions of the work, right? That's like having a manifestation or a vision board that you put it all up there and then you just expect it's going to happen. Like you don't do nothing. It's like, oh, well, I want to be muscly at the end of the year and have my summer body. But if you don't never go to the damn gym, it ain't going to show up, right? So you can't just sit there and say like, I want these things and I have these boundaries. Well, okay, well, if you have those boundaries, then you need to step up and realize that I don't want to be working at these type of jobs and I need to be putting in more applications at these types of places. I need to make sure that I have the type of training for that. I have the type of requirements for that they will hire me. So you can have those boundaries. You can't set boundaries that are above yourself and then thinking that people have to live up to those boundaries when you're not even living up to those boundaries just yet. You know what I'm saying?
I like that, yeah.
Make sure you're setting realistic boundaries and especially in a work situation. We all know what we're going into. In some situations, yeah, you do got to go take that money in a work situation because you've been searching and searching. But we say this several times, expectations is what leads you to disappointment. So don't go in there like, okay, well, they're paying me this, but if I go in there and I work real hard, maybe they'll give me this amount of raise or this. No, don't do it. Okay, if I work this hard, maybe they'll give me a raise. Maybe they'll give me more time, more whatever. But don't sit there and be like, okay, well, I'm gonna work here, and then if I do this and that, and then they'll give me like a 10% raise or 20% raise. You're starting to set expectations. So then when they hit you maybe like with a 5%, now you're pissed. Instead of just being expected of, okay, if I work hard, I'll be rewarded, because that's what you should be done. You should be rewarded for what you've done.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you preemptively set those boundaries, you already know, okay, well, I actually discussed with them before I got this job, I want at least like a 5% raise every year if my performance is above X amount. Suddenly it's like, oh, well, now you can expect that because that's the boundary you set.
Yeah, an interview situation too. That is a negotiation situation. People go in there so many times and they're just, I need a job so bad. This is mean. They sell themselves to the company. And then when it comes down to like hours and what you're going to work, they're like, whatever you need, I can do that. It's like, no, set your boundaries. Hey, and I used to go tell these people all the time, they didn't like it. I'm not working Sundays, especially during football season. Sundays is my football day. And then any other time, Sunday's just my relax, decompress. That's my day. So it's like, I'm not going to work Sundays. And then I had some other times I was like, I'm not working Wednesday nights and this time. It's just like, if you're not okay with it, that's fine. But I'm letting you know now. So when you come later and you put me on a schedule for Wednesday or Sunday and I don't show up, or I tell you, hey, I'm not going to be here, it's because I told you beforehand, I'm not doing those days. So a lot of people just got to go in there like, yeah, you're selling yourself, but it is still a negotiation, and you need to learn how to negotiate the terms for you to have a job at that situation, because they need an employee and you need a job. So they might be saying this is what we're set at, but everybody's not the same. Some people got more experience. Some people are harder workers and more enthusiasm, more heart. Everybody's a little different. So sell yourself and be negotiating at that table.
Yeah. So I actually have a really good story about what happened with me not setting boundaries on work days. So I used to say the same thing. I was like, I don't do Sundays, right? I don't work Sundays. But I got a engineering job, and this was like a really good engineering job. A lot of potential for me to move up the ladder. I was really, really excited about it. And then came the day that they asked me to do some overtime one weekend, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I can do some overtime on the weekend," because I thought, well, I've got nothing else to do. So that one week I worked a Saturday and a Sunday, and then the next week they wanted me to work Saturday and Sunday again, and I didn't set the boundary. I was like, I should have said the first time they asked me, I can do Saturday and this week I can do Sunday, but I don't like to work Sundays on a day like normal basis. I'll only do
Yeah.
this week because I'm not busy this week. Now, if I set that boundary on that day that they asked me the first time, I would not have had the 3 months that followed. The next 3 months, I worked 7 days a week. I for 3 months straight, and I was like, I didn't want to go back on my word because obviously I was scared about losing the job since it was a
Yeah.
good job. And I was in a position where I needed the money. I was like, kind of like, okay, well, I've just moved down south. I had a rent to pay. I was too afraid to kind of say to them, oh, I don't want to work Sunday anymore because they just kept asking me. But if I just literally set the boundary from the very get go and said, I don't do Sundays, I'm busy Sundays, then next week, if they asked me to work Sunday again, I could have said no.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because kind of like what we were saying earlier, like if you let them break that boundary once, they'll know that you're not firm in it. And once you let that break once, they're going to figure out like it's just like a levee with a dam, and like the one water leak pushes through. Okay, well, we got through there. Where's the next weakness? Oh, we can push this boundary, and then before you know it, your whole boundary is gone, and you're working 7 days a week, right? Because I've had work situations like that where I'm like, okay, I might need some extra hours here and there and work, and then the next thing you know, you're overloaded with work. You're the first person they call when they need somebody to come in or they need overtime. You're the person that's always staying. You're like, how did I just become the work mule because I was trying to because you didn't set a boundary, right? So, and learning how to say no. That's something too. People practicing learning how to say no, even if it's just the small things, man. Some people, I mean, you talked about this too. It was hard for me to say no a lot of things because being a people pleaser, want people to like you, wanting to do right by people, trying to be a charitable, kind person. You think that you're always supposed to help out here and there, but sometimes helping is detriment to people, and sometimes it's detriment to their blessing too. Sometimes you helping some people in a situation detours them from the blessing that they're supposed to be from because they might need to learn that lesson. They might need to meet somebody else to help both of them come together to, come to their epiphany. And now you're the roadblock barrier in a way that's trying to help, but really you're harming and stopping him from getting or them to where they're supposed to be getting. So it's learn to say no, set those boundaries. Not everybody's meant to help everybody. If you can't, you can't. You do what you can do, but set those boundaries and be firm in them.
100%. I think what you mentioned about the dam, the leaks, right? This is like, yeah, it's so true. It's like a leak in life, right? In your life, you get these like leaks in your bucket of your life is like you've got a bucket, the water inside is you, right? Your
Yeah.
energy. And when you start doing things that you don't agree with, that you don't like, you're poking a little hole in that bucket and it's just leaking out energy, like it's just going. And you're out here trying to get more water in the bucket whilst you're not plugging the leak, right? So
Right.
100%. And to plug that hole or to avoid having the hole in the first place, you have to say no. And again, preemptive boundary, you already feel better saying no because you're like, my whole life, I set this boundary. And it's like a habitual thing where it's like, okay, I'm not going to break this habit for the just the sake of one person. And I think that also comes into helping people, like you say. You can sometimes put far too much effort into helping other people, and if you don't have boundaries, if you don't have the ability to say no, you literally just take your entire life and put it on somebody else, right? Because you're not helping yourself, you're not letting them help themselves, and instead you've become the person that they rely on. So they're now
Yeah.
living a fantastic life. Meanwhile, you've got this bucket of energy that's just leaking everywhere because you're not saying no to them anymore. You're not letting them learn for themselves, and you're just too busy trying to help them.
Yeah. No, and I heard this the other day, and oh man, I wish I could remember who said it. But if there's a such thing as appropriate selfishness, right? When you're on an airplane and the plane is going down, what do they tell you? Put the mask on yourself, then help others. There is a time and a place for you to be selfish and think about yourself. There is appropriate selfishness times. So you just realize that you can't help others without helping yourself first. You can't take on another man's burden that you ain't taking care of your own, right? You can't sit there and be like, well, I'm struggling to pay my bills, then I go help somebody else, and now I'm wondering why I'm struggling over here. Like, you got to take care of yourself, because at the end of the day, there's some nice people here and there, but at the end of the day, nobody's coming to help you. Nobody's coming to save you. It's going to be up to you, especially as a man. It's going to be up to you to go out there and do it. So take care of yourself and then help others where you can.
Yeah, 100%. I always remember something my granddad said to me, right? And my granddad, funnily enough, said this in like in just the most plain way ever. I was once talking about how one of my friends at school was doing X thing, and I was like trying to help him with this thing, and like talk about this drama. And my granddad just shoots me up and he just goes, "Yeah, just be selfish." And that was it. That was the whole quote. That was it. Be selfish. That was it. That was all he said. Nothing else. Right. And I just thought to myself, I was like, damn. I was like, damn. And in context, that was it.
Yeah, because there's times for it, right? We're not always supposed to be selfish all the time, but there's times where you got to put yourself first. You just have to.
Yep, exactly. And I think that's where the self-care aspect comes in as well. My cup runneth over, right? A classic quote. My cup runneth over. It's that if you care about yourself first and you get yourself into a position where you're full of life, full of energy, that bucket of water analogy, right, that I came up with earlier. If you are in such a good position in your life, the water that you pour in your bucket is overflowing, right? So you're overflowing with energy, overflowing with love, happiness, joy, even sadness, whatever, right? You're overflowing with energy in general. What happens with the energy is it leaks out. It's overflowing. So it's going over the sides. Now somebody else can come underneath you and catch that energy from you, right? And so in terms of like spirituality, it's that if you're around somebody who radiates smiles and positivity, which, for instance, when we're in Miami, like the energy was amazing. Just because we're around positive people all day long, it leaks into other people because all of us, our cups are running over, which means that everybody is basically just filling up with everybody's energy, right? So I think self-care is absolutely a priority.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love to quote certain people because I just be watching so many people. But Deion Sanders has a quote, and it applies to football, but then he has another quote, and I'm gonna transition to that too, that relates it to life. But he's like, if you feel good, or if you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you play good. If you play good, you get paid good. Now, his point is that it's like he was talking about with football, but in life, he's like, yeah, they may not see you right now, but keep making plays. Yeah, you're not the top salesperson right now, but keep making plays. Yeah, you might not be out here and everybody recognizing how hard you're struggling and you're grinding, but keep making plays because that play is going to turn into a win sooner or later. And life is a big battle of war, so you're going to win and lose some battles, but don't let that dictate the entire war of life upon you. So keep making plays. Go out there, take care of yourself. Because if you look good, you're going to feel good. And that's the first steps of making sure everything else falls in line. Because if you feel good, your energy's right, your emotions is right. You're going to attack the day with more positivity, not let one little bad thing hit you. Kind of like what we talked in our other podcasts. Focus on the small wins. Let the little wins build you up to the bigger wins and just focus on that. You can't just be expecting home run hits all the time. Sometimes you gotta take those small wins.
100%. And as well, again, it comes down to what we were talking about about having a support network around you, right? I thoroughly know that it's a super important thing to have the right kind of people around you, which is obviously when you have the right kind of boundaries and you know the kind of people you're looking for and you're self-aware of who you are, you can find the right people to surround yourself with. And that support network helps massively in that war of life, right? In that, like the cup runneth over, the making players, etc. Because when you have your boundaries and you know what position that you want to be in life, now you can make friends and find support that from people that genuinely will care about you, that are genuinely like you.
Yeah, and speak to that too because we've had two different experiences and backgrounds and stuff, and like support is a huge thing. And I know there's probably a bunch of people that's sitting there is like, well, I don't have family, I don't have friends, The people in my community really ain't the greatest people to kind of be around. So it's kind of hard for me to find support. Every time I get around people, I just find bad people. It's hard to find good people. How do I have support? And that was my situation, bro. I was very, very, very alone. Like you said, I've turned off phone for a year. Nobody noticed. I stayed in the house for 3 years. Nobody noticed. Like I didn't go anywhere. I didn't even go grocery shop. I had no groceries delivered. So like I was alone, had no support system, but I had to find a support system. And how I found a support system was through videos and books and quotes and motivations. I was finding things like, I'm feeling this way. I'm down and depressed. I'm dark. I don't want to do nothing. I don't want to go out. I'm never happy. I'm never at peace. I'm constantly just stressed and anxiety and all these things. But I go start watching motivational quotes. I go watch David Goggins. I'm going watching Steve Harvey. God, a couple others. There's so much, but just listening to them. And that was my support. Yeah, I didn't have a friend to give me advice. Yeah, I didn't have family to give me advice, but I could go seek this, and that shit resonated. It hit home to me. I could really understand and be like, okay, this is what I'm doing wrong. Let me go do that. So support don't always have to be an actual person physically there talking to you, being a friend or a family. Sometimes that support can be some content that you're getting from social media, a book that you're picking up. Support can come in so many ways. So don't think, well, I'm out there, I'm all by myself and nobody's ever here, no family. You can still find support. You just got to be willing to go search for it and know what you're actually needing help with. Be honest with yourself, and then you can go seek that support, because it's very, very important to have support.
Oh, 100%. And again, though, without the right boundaries and without the right understanding, you won't get yourself the right kind of support. So I think with what you did, for instance, is a prime example of you kind of understood yourself. You knew the kind of direction you wanted to go, but you had boundaries on people. You had boundaries on, I'm not going to hang around certain types of people who I know are going to bring me down, who I know are going to be trying to, do the wrong things, and they're going to take advantage of me. So I'm going to set these boundaries. And yes, although I'm alone, you were able to navigate that and stay flexible and say, okay, well, just because I don't have physical people, I can find people online. I can find people on YouTube. I can find people on TikTok, right? And you were able to take their advice and knowledge and apply that, and use that as well to obviously expand on your boundaries, to understand what you want out of life, and where you want to go, and also find other like-minded people, right? I mean, watching Fresh, it literally brought us together, right?
Yeah.
Both being aware of this guy Fresh, seeing what he had to offer, joining that, boom, makes a connection.
And that's the thing, is that it's just an online presence. That's the beautiful thing about social media now, is that you can go seek it out. And what made the epiphany for me and everything to click in my mind is that I was watching a young Nipsey Hussle interview. I don't know if you know who Nipsey Hussle is, with you out there in the UK.
I think I've heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah, so a big entrepreneur, underground artist, coming up mainstream and everything. So, but he had a quote, or he was in an interview, I guess meetup is a better word for it, with another big time rapper. And he's like, man, you have taught me so much, this, and that. And the dude's like, we ain't even never met, no talking, and this. He's like, bro, I've been watching all your interviews. Anytime you say anything, I've been a sponge. I've been listening. I've been watching. I go take that stuff. I go listen to your rap. It's like, I've been learning and teaching. So it's like, so many people's like, man, if I could just get in a room with that person, I could pick their brain and learn. But yet there's content out there. You can still go pick their brain and learn. The blueprints out there. So you can still go find that support. Now everybody's laying it out on social media for you to go find it. You just got to know what you're needing help with, be honest with yourself, and go get that help. Self-awareness and yeah.
Yeah. I also think it comes into, if you look at when you're trying to watch the right kind of content, when you're looking for the right kind of people on social media, etc., I think so many people fall into the trap of obviously just using social media for mindless dopamine, right? And I think it's a super important thing to protect your time and what you do with your time. And so if you're going to use social media, if you're going to use these things, you should use them for positive influence, right? Rather than negative influence, rather than just for watching like random videos that are just going to give you a dopamine hit, which every so often, we're not perfect human beings, of course. Like
Right.
I do it every so often where I'll just be scrolling, I'll be like laughing at videos and watching dumb things. But overall, you should protect your time and think to yourself, actually, like my time itself is a boundary. And if I waste it watching negative things, just trying to get dopamine hits, by the end of the day, I'm going to have done nothing. I'm going to be feeling like crap, and it's going to be like pointless. So I think it's a super, super important thing when you're watching social media, when you're listening to these people, you're aware of how does this actually make you feel? How do you react to this? By the end of the day, have you gotten more done by listening to these people, by watching this content, or have you gotten less done? Right. And so, like, set that as like a mindful thing that you do when you're using social media.
Yeah, and that's kind of like for my content, and I'm gonna speak on that 'cause that's perfect for it. Is that like because I do reaction videos for majority, that's how I built up my followings as reactions. But for me, it was making those reaction videos in a way that it would help people push through the day. Not just, oh, okay, I'm escaping, but hey, come, this video is going to give you some energy, give you some laugh, give you joy back in life. Go out and attack the day now. So not come be and then just be stuck here, but come here. Okay, you're having a bad day. Something's rough. You need a smile. You need a laugh. You need something just to spark up your day. This is it. Now go back and go attack the day. And then so as the reaction, then what will help where people in is the motivation quotes and then the advice and talking about my life and situation. Those are the things that help reel them in. So it was adding value in two different ways, and values that was self growth, the value that was the way, kind of like we talk about Mr. Beast, re-energizing, right? He plays board games when he wants to
Yeah.
re-energize, right? Come watch a couple funny, good, positive videos, get your energy back, get your mood back, get your smile back, and then go back out into the day. So learn to use social media to help you, because it can be a tool to help you. You just got to learn how to use it properly.
Yeah, exactly. And you can use it to learn and to basically come up with the right kind of boundaries for your entrepreneurship journey. I think a really important thing though as well is that people have to be in a position where they are wanting to improve. And the only way you can be in a position where you want to improve is if you're somebody who isn't beating yourself up all the time and calling yourself a loser, right? Like, you have to be somebody who has forgiven yourself for your mistakes, but you're wanting to improve. Because I thoroughly believe the only way you can forgive yourself as a person is if you actually want to improve, right?
Yeah, bro. Because you have to be honest with yourself, but you also can't be too hard on yourself neither, right? You're
Yeah.
like, okay, I made this mistake. This is why. But you can't be like, oh, man, I'm a loser. I'm bad. I'm never gonna get anything right. This is just me. The world. No. Okay, this is what I did wrong. Learn, because everything's a life lesson. So you learn those lessons, you grow and get better, and become who you're supposed to be. Because life is trying to prepare you to be the person you're supposed to be. So life can hand you the blessing it has planned for you, but it can't give you the blessing it has for you with you being the person you are, because we've seen it, bro. People get blessed, they get their blessing, and then they fumble the bag or they screw it over because they wasn't built as character to be the person that was ready for that blessing. So sometimes you just realize life is teaching you those lessons. So um, forgive yourself, let yourself know that, hey, even though I did wrong, we all make mistakes. As long as you know in that moment you was trying to make the best decision that you thought was right, and in your heart you truly thought it was the proper right decision for you to do, then doesn't matter if it's a mistake or not. You went into that not being vindictive and doing what you absolutely thought was the best thing for that situation. Just learn it. Don't beat yourself up for it. Learn that lesson, move on, apply it for the next lesson. Live and learn.
Yeah. Yeah. It's exactly it, man. It is literally live and then learn, right? And just repeat the cycle. Um, Something that I've learned a lot recently is like doing things in volume. So, for instance, if you're going to uh, improve your life, do it in volume, as in do it in everything, not just in like one little aspect, right? And don't be afraid about being perfect or optimizing, which comes into obviously forgiving yourself. But whatever you do, don't sit there and think, oh, I've got to be perfect, I've got to like be optimized, etc. Like with this podcast, this very podcast that we're doing, it's like in my mind I realize, like, as much as both of us want to have like really good shorts and really good quality and do it in person, and we might want all these other things, the important part is that we just do it in volume, right? And
Yes.
so this applies to everything in life. I think that if you want to improve yourself or you want to get on a self-improvement journey, you want to start setting boundaries, you want to start staying away from the negativity, communicating assertively, being more self-aware, do all of it in volume. But don't worry if you're unoptimized, if you're getting it wrong, if you're wasting too much time on one thing and not the other thing. Just at first, just do it all in volume, do as much as you can, and then dial it back. Then look and be like, okay, 80% of what I'm doing is probably just like not needed. So let me instead focus on that 20% that's really improving my life.
Right. Because, like, even in science or in anything, right, for you to have data on any type of study or situation, there has to be analysis done, right? There has to be
Mm.
studies done. We have to get numbers, right? So that applies to life too. You can't get the results for data of what you need to do in life if you're not out here doing any studies. You got
Yeah,
to
yeah,
go
yeah.
out there, you got to go apply, you got to live and learn, and then sit back, analyze all the data that you just put in. Like, okay, that worked, that didn't work. This is why, this is not why, and then go work. You got to go out there and try, man. You can't be scared to fail. You're nobody's gonna be perfect. We've all failed. We've all stumbled. We've all done bad things. We've all done things that we look back on. It's like, damn, I wish I would have done that different. And to your point, grow. We're going to look back at this podcast at some point, maybe 2 months, maybe a year down the line. We're going to look back on these first couple episodes and we're going to cringe like, man, why did we do it like this? Why didn't we do this? This is bad. That's
Yeah.
bad. But we're going to be able to nitpick it. So you're always going to improve. But that's also the good thing to see that, oh, we was there and look how much we progressed. Even though that past might make us cringe because we wish we would have done it different, but you can see your progression. So then you have your data to analyze of like, this is why we was able to do this.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I personally think like if you okay, so an example of something that I do a lot when it comes to making content. And my personal content, a lot of the time, I'll record something, do the audio and everything, and then I'll look at the video, I'll watch it back, and I'll go delete and just get rid of the whole thing like in an instant. And it's gone. It's like that's it. I've got rid of it. And even if I regret it afterwards, I'm like, well, I've got rid of it now. And it's because I focus too much on like, oh well, this could have been better, or that scene there could have been better, or I could edit like that. No, you know, in fact, there's too many things to do on this video. I'll get rid of it, right? And I just get rid of it instead of coming at it from the mindset of let me forget about that quality aspect for now and just do it in volume so I can learn what people want from me, right? That so I can figure out what people like about me. And this is also the same when it comes to the boundaries and friends, right? If you look at what you're doing and the people you're hanging around, right? And you're like, okay, these people are negative, they're bringing me down. Start hanging around with other people. And then if they're also negative, be like, cool, whatever. Go and start hanging around with more other people, right? And just keep, just try, fine, okay. And now, once you start to realize, okay, maybe these people are pretty good, then start dialing it back. Start saying, okay, I'm going to stop trying to find people now. And now I'm going to focus on actually figuring out, is this person a good person to stick around?
Yeah, to that point. It's kind of like what we were talking about a couple episodes ago. Is that trees don't hang out with grass, even though they came from the same place.
Yeah.
Don't let somebody just go. Well, we've been friends since elementary. Well, they're negative every day. They're not good for your life. Move on. They're grass. You're a tree. Move on. It's like it's not that it's that to be a bad thing, disrespectful. It's just you're not good for my life, and that's just what understanding. Set that boundary, right? So and you just got to be honest. That negativity every day is going to drain you. It's not going to be good. You put out into this world what you're going to get. Energy is very, very real. Karma is very, very real too. So, and a lot of times people's like, well, I've been doing so good and I've been putting out this into the world, but it's still coming back. It's like karma's not always instantly neither. You maybe been putting in good karma for the past 3 months, but you got 5 years worth of bad karma you got to catch up to, right? So you just got to understand that like you're putting things out into those worlds. So it's the same thing with that energy. Don't let people come and drain your energy and be negative around you all day, because that's going to start working not only with your everyday life, but that's going to start affecting your self-esteem as well.
Yeah, 100%. And the going back to the friendship analogy, the point is that too many people are thinking too much about all the things that could be perfect about something or somebody, rather than figuring out, is this person just generally good for me? Is and what I am doing, is it generally good for me? Rather than that, they're focusing on the, oh, but what I'm doing isn't perfect. It's not perfect for me, right? And like when I say do things in volume, that's kind of my point, is that don't try to do things perfectly. Don't expect things to be perfect. Don't just do everything in big amounts, then dial it back and focus it in and try get it to the best position you can. For instance, you can look at healthy eating, right? The best way to healthy eat is simply in volume. Stop eating the bad stuff, eat the good stuff, right? That's it. That's it. Just do that in volume. Just do that over the course of a month, 30 days. Then Once you've finally stopped eating the bad stuff and now you're eating lots of good stuff, then look at all the good stuff and say, okay, what does the best for me? What's the best kind of food for me? What gives me the best reaction, the most energy, all that kind of stuff. And then you could like dial it in. There's tons of examples. There's tons of examples.
Yeah, and it's just don't be loyal to a fault. Some people, especially when you're trying to be a good person, you don't have boundaries and you're a people pleaser, bro. You'll sit there and try to be loyal to a fault to somebody. Well, we've been here, and even though they're doing this wrong, that if I'm here for them, I'd be the support for them. Like we try to portray what we're wanting from them onto them from ourselves, so that like, no, you need that support system. You need somebody being loyal to you because you know that you're good, you're good and trying to do good and change. Not everybody's like that. Some people are fine, content in being who they are and what they're doing, and they just play and act like they are needing help in certain situations just so they can keep using people and having people around them. Right. So yeah, set them boundaries and be firm. It's going to be hard at first, practice saying that no, but it's crucial. It's very important.
Yeah. And I think don't be afraid to set boundaries and volume as well, right? I
Yes.
think, just if you, every time things are going like, bringing you down, or they're negative, they're not good for you, they're screwing up your productivity, set that as a boundary. And again, just do it in volume. And then once you've kind of got it in volume, then you can figure out, okay, how many of these boundaries do I actually need now? Well, how many boundaries did I set simply out of fear? How many boundaries did I set because they were good boundaries? And then obviously optimize. But first, just set them. If you think that this is going to help you out, set the boundary. See if it helps you out. If it doesn't, stop it. Right, and like don't do that again. For instance, because I set a boundary on like trust, and for a long time I just like would like refuse to trust people up front. And the problem with this boundary of mine was that I couldn't like meet or get to know anybody because I just immediately assumed the worst of them. So it wasn't that I'd set a boundary on trust, it's that I'd set a boundary out of fear that people are going to screw me over. So I just started thinking everybody was out to get me. No, I couldn't trust anybody. Right. And so I had to cut that out and say, okay, actually, that's a bad boundary. Let me set a good boundary, which is that let me not share everything about myself or put all my faith and trust into this person immediately. However, let me assume the best of them.
Some boundaries aren't permanent, right? They're temporary, situational, right? So it's like, okay, this boundary is going to be here until you prove trust to me that I can do this. Then that boundary will be removed, right? So there's certain boundaries that are like that, and there's some boundaries that are hard, like never. This is a boundary. Don't ever cross it. Then ones is just like, I got to get to know you better before you get this side of me. So know the difference in your boundaries, and then like you said too, know when a boundary is a bad boundary, because not all boundaries are going to be good. So know when you're setting a boundary that's actually hurtful to yourself, because at the end of the day, boundaries are set and been put in place to help yourself and put you in better positions, not do the opposite and bring you back down and backslide.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that comes down to self awareness again. If you're setting a boundary, you have to be self aware of what the purpose of this boundary is. And for those who aren't so self aware, sometimes you will set boundaries that are impermanent, that aren't, like boundaries that you're kind of like going to have for life, and that you may regret at some point. You may say, actually, I shouldn't have set that boundary because it made me lose a lot of opportunities. But definitely, but that definitely comes down to self awareness.
Yeah, yeah, no, but it's truly impactful self awareness, because that's usually some of the biggest things for people to understand. Because I tell that in content creating world all the time, but it applies to life. Is that if you're going to be the person that makes excuses for yourself every time, like if you can't be honest with yourself, I understand certain situations you might not want people to know because you're kind of humiliated about certain things, so you might I like without it being honest. All right, you lie a little bit about what certain situations because you're kind of embarrassed what certain
Yeah,
situation is, and you're humiliated, so you don't want it. But you have to be honest with yourself at the end of the day. You can't be like, well, it's their fault they did this, or this is why, or the world just no. You got to be honest with yourself. Remove your emotions real quick, all your anger, whatever the sadness, whatever it is, and be like, why is this? Why did I do this? You got to break it down to understand why it give me these feelings. Why did it make me feel that way? What it was that did that, and then set that boundary so you don't feel that way again. Know what you like, know you as a person, learn yourself, set those boundaries so you can keep yourself happy.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I mean, an example of a boundary that came from my self awareness, right, is essentially I won't go into too much detail, but it's picking the right kind of people to be around on a consistent basis, right? And this came from my self awareness because I started to learn who I truly was as a person, what I truly wanted out of life. And so a lot of the people that I used to know, a lot of the friends that I used to have, I begun to distance myself from them a bit because I was like, actually, these people don't align with the type of person I want to be. And so I started creating a boundary, which was I want to hang around certain types of people. Now, within that, obviously came the trust boundary, which I shouldn't have, set so harshly, and other little things as well. But overall, the idea of this boundary was that I'm no longer going to let myself like I can be acquainted, I can hang around them, but I'm not going to let myself spend hours around these types of people because they are going to bring me into a world which I don't want to be a part of. I want my world to be X. And I learned that through self awareness. And so I set the boundary of I want to find people who want their world to also be similar to X or in the same realm as X, right?
Right. It's kind of like what DMX said is when someone shows you to who they are, believe them. All right. And
Mm.
trust in them to be who they are. When they show you who they are, believe them and trust for them to be that. If a snake shows you a snake, expect it to be a snake. Don't expect that snake to one day be a fuzzy little bunny or something nice. It's not. It's going to be a snake. So, in like a situation, you understand these people are acquaintances. They're good for certain situations, but they're not good all the time. They're going to drain my time. They're not good for my production, but they have their purpose. So know people and trust them to be who they are. If they do change, maybe and grow and progress, because we're all supposed to grow and progress later in life, then that's good. But trust and know that that's who they are right now, and that might be who they are forever. Don't expect that they're going to change. So just believe people when they show you who they are, and that'll help you a lot rather than putting some expectations on people and being let down.
And again, just clearly define who you are as a person. Clearly define that line for you, right? When we say to you, clearly define your boundary, it means very specifically define the boundary, not just in general. I don't want to hang around snakes. Nobody wants to be around a snake, right? Like,
Yes.
it's an obvious thing, right? But when you set that boundary of I don't want to be around snakes, it's like, okay, what is a snake to you? I don't want to be around people who are consistently taking my money and not returning it. I don't want to be around people who promise me one thing and then deliver a different thing. I don't want to be around people who tell me they're going to be there at 5 and don't turn up till 9, or even worse, don't message me till 10 and tell me that, oh, I can't make it. Obviously,
it's it's that I'd rather be at the table with people talking about making money than talking about people.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I'd
Yeah,
rather I'd rather talk about money, making money than talk about people. And that's what it is for me.
yeah, and again, that's a clearly defined boundary. It's like when I'm sat at a table actually eating, like this is genuinely what we mean by the table analogy. It means when you're sat in a restaurant, right, and you're with your friends, right? Miami's a prime example. We're sat around this table and we're all talking about business, ideas, philosophy, what it means to have good friends, good brothers, money, etc. These are the types of conversations I want to have, right? And these are the types of boundaries. And so when I meet somebody and the first thing they want to talk about is, oh, I was with this girl on the Saturday and and it's like, bro, I don't care. My boundary is boom, that's it, line. They've crossed it, and because I said it is a clearly defined boundary, and my self awareness, I go, you're not somebody I want to hang around. I'll have this meal with you. I'll have a laugh and a joke, but after this, I'm done with that person. I won't hang around them that often, right? If at all. 10 days. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I think as well, it was because don't get it twisted, because I think, again, it's something I see a lot is younger people, especially, they, as they're getting into this world, they think that now they cannot have a laugh either. They think that all jokes are now gone, right? And it's all like, and it's like we still have a laugh and a fun and a joke, but we joke differently. Like we were joking about the business models. We were joking, like, if you remember when we were sat at your place, right, and there was the four of us, and it was so funny. We talked about the engineering stuff, and Ian cracking jokes. Dude, that was so funny. And that's kind of the point, is that, like, it's interesting because we can still talk about like business, etc., and have a laugh and have a funny joke about it. And so many people, again, get it twisted that, like, oh, if I get into business, if I only sit and speak about money, I've got to be dead serious. Like, no, you can be fun of, like, honestly, you can have a good laugh talking about ways you can make money, which is really funny to me.
Yeah,
Like,
bro, it's crazy how many times we'll sit there and have conversations about making money, and then we'll talk about mistakes we made and get laughs off of that because, like,
yeah,
look where we're at now, and we were stressing about that moment. Now look at us,
yeah.
and we can kind of laugh about it, bro. There's moments like that, and there's fun to be had, bro. We had a lot of fun out there in Miami. We talked
Oh
about
yeah.
Mr. Producer.
Yeah, dude, that was good. That was really, really good. But yeah, so that's exactly it, man. It's like, I, if you, when we talked about, you know, hey, like, this is the ways you can make money, like, this is what I'm doing, this is what you're doing, etc. What was interesting is these conversations would just dive into like philosophy. They would dive into, like you say, the mistakes we've made. They would dive into the people we've been around in the past, and we were able to learn so much. And one really important thing is that you're also able to learn a lot about yourself in these kinds of conversations. And again, this is why, if you're going to set a boundary, you should set a boundary that is aiming to better you as a person. As in, if you have something that is negative in your life, set a boundary that stops you from doing negative things or having negative thing happen to you, and instead set that boundary to turn that negative thing into a positive thing. And I look at those conversations as a prime example of that. I used to hang around bad people. I used to do bad things. I used to make a lot of mistakes. And I was then sitting, and all of us were sitting at tables just joking about all these like daft things we did, and how now we look at it from an outside perspective and like look at the back at what we did in Miami, and we go, oh my god, that was such a good time. There was no boundary there that was broken because I'd already set them, and so did everybody else, and everybody went there with a better understanding of who they were as a person.
Yeah. That trip was amazing. I'm ready for another meetup. I know there's more coming. So, but yeah, no, it was great just to be around it because for me, I was missing that for so long. Like that support, like that was like the first time in many, many years I had a physical support system. And like you said, you'll sit down and talk to people and get some epiphanies and some realizations of yourself. And there'll be times I'll be hearing other people's stories and they're like, no, I went through this and then I did this and it's changed. Like, all right, thank you. That's what I need to do. Okay, because I've been struggling with that too. So sometimes you can see certain people or just have conversations, and there's so many things that we encounter that's the same, and you can learn something from somebody of what they did that can help, even if it's smaller. Whether you're in a higher financial place than them or a lower financial place, like you can learn no matter what. And that was great. There's so many conversations where dudes was opening up about some of the things that they encountered through business. And I was like, okay. And then I was able to come back and implement them and apply them and be better and add those boundaries. So I was like, all right, that's what I was doing wrong with all these things.
Yeah, 100%. So, to finish it up here, I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give to anybody, when it comes to basically finding the right people and having those boundaries, etc., I think the biggest piece of advice that I have is to know yourself first. If you don't know who you are and what you want out of life, you cannot set a boundary that is positive for you because you don't know what your positive direction is. So if you are just somebody who is like, I don't know what I want out of life, I'm trying to learn about myself, I like McDonald's or whatever. Like, I'm messing around, but it's
Yeah.
like, if you don't know what you want out of life, a lot of the things you might be doing are negative for you, such as maybe you're like, I like movies. It's like, okay, so you want to watch movies all your life and hang around people that only watch movies? Or do you want to be a movie producer? Is that what you're saying? Do you like movies, like you want to be a movie producer? Okay, well, hang around people that talk about script writing, that talk about producing movies, content, all that kind of stuff, right? So my biggest piece of advice is know who you are, know what you want out of life, then from there extrapolate some boundaries that you can almost have permanently throughout your life, that you're like, I know if I find these kinds of people, or if I come across this kind of a situation, I am not doing these things, or I'm not crossing this line, because this line is important. It's sacred, because this line is what keeps me moving in the positive direction rather than the negative direction. So know yourself first.
Yeah. For me, it's in this situation because I mean, I was gonna piggyback on what you said, but let's give two pieces of advice here. So my advice is focus on small wins and change negativity thoughts into positive. Right. Start focusing on that self care aspect of it. So even if it's something simple, guy cut you off in traffic. At least I didn't wreck. Okay, you could be mad that he cut you off. At least I didn't wreck. Right. Just the small things. Just find anything that aggravates you and turns negative. Try to figure out a way to flip it into the positive. Almost trip. I could have busted my face. Did people see me? Yes, but I could have busted my face. Could have been worse. Anything it might have been. So focus that. And then the negative thoughts, like we kind of talked about. It's like, don't let yourself beat yourself up. Like, oh, when you do something, oh, that was stupid. Why am I dumbass? Don't do that. Okay. All right, we know not to do that now, right? Okay, this was that. Change those thoughts. Don't beat yourself up, because a lot of people's like, well, I'm just joking with myself. Well, your inner self don't know that you're joking. All they know is that they're words, and words have meanings and they have energy, and your body is going to start believing that, and your psyche is going to start believing that after you're telling yourself that so many times. So take those little intrusive thoughts, turn them into positivity, then focus on the small wins, the things that usually aggravate you and frustrate you. Try to figure out how to bring a positive into that light so you can just change the outlook of your life and get a little bit more energy in your outlook and perspective.
Awesome, man. Yeah, awesome. Well, listen, guys, if you did like it, be sure to leave a comment below about what you learned. Um, and most importantly, we obviously are trying to grow this out. So if you know anybody who might find some value in this, share it with them. We'd really, really appreciate that. Leonard, as always, man, it's a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it, man. Thank you.
All right, peace.